You're listening to Who's Hot, the UKOCR podcast where Wil Chung, along with elite racers Becky, Neal, Chris Shipley and the occasional special guest, discuss the UKOCR series and other important races in the OCR calendar to find out who's hot.
Hello and welcome to the UK OCR Who's Hot podcast. My name is Wil Chung and I am the host. We're here to recap the second race of the series, Born Survivor. With me, as always, I have my two elite racers. I have Becky, Neal. Hi, Becky. How are you doing?
Hi, Will. Good, thanks. How are you?
Yes, very well, thank you. And of course, we've got Chris Shipley. Hi, Chris.
Hello. You all right?
Yeah, all good. And of course, we've got a guest here who was spectating at Born Survivor. We have James Burton. James, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Will. Hey, guys. How are you all doing?
Hey.
How's it going, Mr. President?
Very well, thank you. Very well.
As mentioned, we are here to talk about the second race of the series. It was Born Survivor up my way, up near Macclesfield in the northwest at Cape Thorne Hall last Saturday at a very, very, very cold Cape Thorne Hall. Oh my God, it's so cold, windy, wet. I will very quickly go through the top 10 finishers, and James, we'll start with you in terms of what the race was looking like because you watched everyone there. So I'll start with the females. In first place, Imi Hales. Second place, Karen Macquarie. Third place, Josie Lloyd. Followed by Ellie Brinicum, Nicola Gillespie, Charlotte Dehaney, Ruth Battersby, Deborah Love, Emma Kirkwood, Susan Jarman, Heather Ratcliffe. And in the men's, we had first place, Daniel Tickham. Second place, Russell Walsh. Third place, Mo Maxwell. Followed by Finlay Greenleaf, Ricky Carino, Jason Brunnock, Gavin Hogarth, Lee Brinicum, Dasa Scanella, and Richard Shaw, and Ramunas Wickes, Alex Young, and Sean Mariraba, who we was all talking about last week. I mean, just looking at those names, James, that was a hell of a lineup, right?
Oh, it was, and the depth of the men's field, especially, it was one of those. So I said I was going to rabbit and film the event, which was awesome. It was great. I really enjoyed it, but it was only me, and I was really drawn who should I follow? So I was following the women's, and cracking race there. Imi was out in front. I was going slightly towards the men's because I could see it, and then I was like, actually, no, I'm following the women's. And then Josie was coming back and challenging Imi. It was getting really close in the middle of the race. And then, Imi went out and ended up smashing it. But as you pointed out, the field was strong, and the men's field, I think when we were kind of looking at the races at the start, there was probably 6 or 7 people that could have easily won the race, like on paper. So to see them going head to head was great. And the course, Will, I've never been to Born Survivor, but I was very impressed with the course and how it was put on.
The course was amazing. Let's just go back to females first before we talk about the men. I think we've got some interview questions for Imi first.
We do, yeah. So I managed to get a hold of Imi after the race, after a few days after the race, and tried to contact her. Got a few bits and pieces from her. So
The race went really well, thanks. I managed to stick to the plan and had enough energy left in the tank to really push for the last few kilometres when things started to dry out. So it was really fun, very, very cold. The terrain was definitely trickier than the recent races I've been doing. So that made things a little bit harder. But yeah, because it dried out over the last few K, you could really push, which was nice. Feels totally different racing this year compared to last season. Born Survivor was actually almost a year, I think just over a year since my first OCR race. So yeah, comparing that to Summer Nuts for the qualifier last year, it just feels totally different. I put in a load of work over winter and really tried to build up some endurance. Because coming from 400 metres, it was a bit of a quick change around last year. So really putting in the time and effort over winter has clearly made the world a difference. And also training in Oz where it was warm, that clearly helped.
What it's like racing now?
So this year, I've definitely got a completely different approach to racing. My mindset's changed a little bit. I've been really working on how I approach it and how I push through the races. And that's clearly paying off. And I think I'm slowly getting more confident in racing the longer distances. The first race I had was a 10K in Australia, and that was the first one that I'd done, which was over like 5-6 maybe like 8k was my longest before this year. So yeah, racing a 10k and a 21k, and now racing some more 10s. I'm like slowly getting the confidence that I can hold me in a little bit more in terms of running rather than just giving me a technical course. So yeah, it's been really good.
She's having such a great year. I asked, what's up for your next race?
My next race is, in theory, Challenge Cup in 2 weeks' time, but the M25 shut, so I actually don't know if I'm going to be able to make it, which is really sad. But there's just kind of no way of me being able to get to Nuclear, which is gutting because I haven't raced at Nuclear, which is ironic given I'm part of Phoenix. But yeah, so in theory that one, but if not, then the weekend after there's a race in Western-super-Mare, which is kind of like a high rock sort of thing. It's kind of like 8 kilometres, 5 functional fitness stations. It's like a 4k, it's 8k and a 12k, so I thought I'd give the 8k a go, kind of get a bit more endurance in there. So that's just a bit of fun, but good training.
What was the best bit about Born Survivor?
Oh, the best bit of Born Survivor, without a doubt, was probably one of the obstacles when it was kind of near the end. You've just been running through the Bluebell Woods, which is stunning, and it was a bit drier underfoot then, so it was a lot nicer. And then you're coming down and you can hear music, and you're in this little cops bit, and one of the marshals is just playing The Great Escape, and the obstacle was called The Great Escape, and at the time I hadn't realised what the music was, but it does make sense now. And yeah, he was playing that really fucking loudly throughout the whole thing. So yeah, I thought that was really fun. All the obstacles are like really well thought out, and I think it's such an imaginative race. I mean, it's not just like low rig, high rig, low rig, high rig. Like, they put so much time and effort into really like giving them a good name. Like, one of the rivers was called Sniper's Alley, and I was like, oh, I wonder why it's called that. It's a bit of a bizarre name just for like a river section. And I'm running along and then I lose my leg down one hole and then lose my leg down the other hole. I was like, oh, that might be why. So yeah, I think the imagination they put into the race is pretty unmatched. So I loved that part.
Awesome. Thanks, Emmy, for that input. And we also managed to get Karen involved too on the voice notes.
So Karen had a fantastic race. How did it go, Karen? How was your race?
I had a great race day on Saturday at Born Survivor. We were really lucky with the weather. It was a lovely day, and the race got going reasonably quickly, only slightly behind schedule. I knew that it was going to be quite different to Tartan Warrior, and it's just going to be about sort of grafting through, running through the deep mud, with very little chance of any real failures. I enjoyed the race. I flung myself through all the crawls and going sort of hard through those. I managed sort of all the walls, the high walls at the end, to a bit more effort. But yeah, ultimately everything was nothing too technical, nothing too challenging. It was just about sort of running hard on difficult terrain, which I enjoyed. I did have a bit of a laugh at the start when I found out that some people had been planning to bring their neoprene and I was wearing my sun cream. But it was a good race overall.
And what was it like battling Emmy?
Yeah, so I knew that when I saw Emmy at the start that she was going to be the one to beat or to chase in my case. So I knew that we were starting with hill shuttles, so I did run off as hard as I could. Emmy and Josie sort of both pulled away from me in the hill shuttles, so I just sort of spent the rest of the race trying to keep as close as I could to them, essentially. You'd lose sight of them occasionally, like in forests and things like that. I think at one point I had to tie my shoelaces, and sort of Ellie passed me. I think I was in fourth at that point, but I managed to catch her in sort of a small stream. It was quite handy having someone in front to see how deep it was and that I wasn't going to just disappear. I think we came out of that and I got ahead of her, and we were doing the sort of log carry up the hill and under a net, which was a bit annoying, but managed it quite quickly. I saw sort of Emmy was just in front, Josie was next, then I was there. Round the tree at the top and back down. I think that's the last time I saw Emmy, and it was probably like sort of between 3 and 4k or something like that. So I don't think I saw Emmy after that from memory. So I don't know, it'll be interesting to see the times. I don't know how far ahead she was in the end. Yeah, just kept sort of plodding along, doing all the barbed wire crawls and all the tunnel crawls and jumping over things and running through the mud. And realised sort of near the end that although Josie had been at sort of one point a minute ahead, that I was sort of catching her. So it gave me a bit of incentive to sort of keep running and run a bit faster towards the end. Came into the last sort of there was like 8 obstacles right at the end altogether. And I realised I was like pretty much, I'd almost caught Josie up, who was in second place at that point. So yeah, I just gave a bit of a push, chose sort of the correct lane. I went on the left balance beam, so it meant when I turned left, where Josie jumped off the other balance beam had a bit further to go, it meant that we sort of met there, and then we did the sort of weird sort of tunnel where you sort of go through the tunnel up a level and back on yourself and then back up again. We sort of did that at the same time, and then we came to the big high wall, and I just got over that just in front, and then ended up finishing in second. Emmy was still about, but I don't know how long she'd been finished for. So yeah, as I say, it was good competition. I had more of a competition with sort of Josie and Ellie. I think it's Ellie, than Emmy, but yeah, it was good to try and sort of keep up with her for as long as I could. So I enjoyed that.
And how are you feeling at the moment leading the series? We've been talking about you a lot on the podcast.
Yeah, it's great that I'm leading the series. I am a bit surprised, to be honest, but I think there's been a lot of there has been a lot of sort of the top competitors from last year and haven't raced yet. So you know it has potential to all change when everyone starts racing. So I'd imagine the next race at Nuclear potentially will have some more people at it. So that'll be interesting to see who's there for that. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I've doing much better than last year. I think last year at this point I was I'd had a 9th and a 5th or something like that. So yeah, it's doing much better than last year regardless, and I think I'm going to try and beat my score from last year as the sort of main aim, and see how well I can get on in the series, and just take it from there. But yeah, enjoying racing at the moment and looking forward to some more.
And I've been looking at Strava. I saw that fast track 3K that you did. Can you spill the beans on some of your workouts on Strava, doing OCR work and stuff? Tell us more.
Yeah, so my workouts on Strava. So I obviously train with Gav at the Fit Body Farm up in Culmores near Glasgow. I essentially do weight training most once or twice a week, usually if I can fit it in, do some running, and then yeah, whenever I get a chance I sort of practice regs and trying to work on my endurance, so just from a European champs point of view, because the regs take me a lot longer there and then I end up coming off because I don't have the sort of grip endurance. So just been working on, if I'm on a reg, to just go back and forward until I fall off essentially. So yeah, just been doing a lot of work for Euros, so grip work and grip endurance, and also grip work, doing a reg with sort of bent elbows with the legs up for a low rig. So yeah, just working every week and just sort of keep plodding on.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Karen. That's been amazing. Also, and we'll talk about the race in a second, but I had a message from Ruth Battersby.
Hi Will, thanks for inviting me to chat on the podcast today. Hi Becky, hi Chris. Sorry I can't be with you in person. So to talk about Born Survivor, I think it delivered what it promised. Military style challenges, challenged strength, resilience. I think both the mental and physical challenge at times. Kind of took obstacle course racing back to its military roots. That's kind of what I recall seeing, the first time I ever recall seeing somebody doing an obstacle race many years ago. Crippling factor. But I think what these races do is, even though there wasn't a lot of technical work on it, it's just one rig, I think it kind of reminds us of the varied range of skills that you need for obstacle racing. That physical strength, that resilience, that ability to manage different terrains, to keep a cool head when you're going into a situation that's kind of not normal. And that's what I really liked about this race. I think it is definitely more challenging than your Spartan Super or even kind of like your single lap Top Mudder races. But obviously, obstacle density was higher, the terrain was more difficult. The walls were big, weren't they? There was a lot of big walls to get over. I quite enjoy jumping over walls that are in my way. It's therapeutic in a way. And some of them were huge. I mean, Checkpoint Charlie, I think it was 10 foot. It seemed bigger than 10 foot. Not far from the end of the course, and it's right at that point of the course where you're thinking, I'd love to be able to run spring off this wall to get up it, but then you know there's a 50% chance if you stretch your calf at that point, you are going to get nasty cramp. And these are the sort of things that make obstacle course racing challenging, in my opinion, kind of trying to figure out your way and play the game of the course as well, figure out how you're going to get over an obstacle without injuring yourself and as quickly as possible and be successful. There were lots of cold water immersions as well, weren't there, in this course? I expected it, even getting down and crawling in those tight rat holes full of water. And then it was a fight then to really get warm again. It wasn't a particularly warm day. And then once you got warm again, you're back in the water. So, it was challenging in those respects. Even if it wasn't sort of a technical race, I think this race definitely has an important place in the series. And I'm really glad it's in the series this year. I thought the atmosphere was great. The music playing, they really brought kind of the military spirit to the race. By the way, what you can hear in the background is my Bengal cat who wants attention. I thought the marshalling was great, especially around the water zones. I think they were very hot on the water safety, which I think was important considering how cold the water was. And I think this also makes the race a really good place for people who've never done obstacle course racing before to really get kind of the best out of obstacle racing and really enjoy it. And it sets a challenge for everybody. I think it can be a challenge for an elite athlete as well as a challenge for somebody who's just started out in sports. So, I really loved this race. I thought the events village was spot on. There was lots of other things going, lots of activities. And it's really nice how they have the last few obstacles of the course where all the spectators can kind of get around you and cheer you on. And we really needed that cheering on at that blitz wall at the end, because when you walk at the side of it, it doesn't look that much of a challenge. But when you've just come to the end of your race and you're faced with this wall, when you're stood in front of it, it's pretty big. And I can remember on the elite lap, I actually took 2 places on the blitz wall because the 2 girls in front of me tried to beat each other up the wall, and then I don't know, I think they ran out of steam, bless them. And then as they took a moment to breathe, I was like, right, this is my opportunity. There were loads of people shouting, cheering us all on, and such a great atmosphere and a great way to finish a race as well. Hill sprints to start the elite race. I think that was quite mean, but at the same time, I think it was genius because it meant that you had to go out with a bang. You really got into your cardio zone straight away, and it split the pack up quite nicely so that when you did get to the walls, there was no hold up or anything on the obstacles. I wasn't held up at any stage on the obstacles, and I think that's really important for when you're actually racing. Absolutely loved it. Could I have added anything to it? Would I? I think the spirit of it all was spot on. Like I said, I loved the walls, lots of crawling, lots of mud, maybe a rope climb and another carrying. That might still be in the spirit of like the commando race. Not so much another rig maybe, but then you've got those challenges in other races. So there's time for that elsewhere, I think, this series. I went on after the Elite Squadron race to do the endurance race. My plan this year is to try and push myself with the longer races because I'm not a particularly fast runner, but I do have the ability to keep going for long periods of time. So I am more of a distance person. So the 10K for me, I had to really push to try and race that distance. I'm better when I kind of settle into a rhythm. But lap 2, the mud was churned up so much, the whole game just became very different. There was no quick footing over the muddy areas. I tried to do it, lost my foot in the mud, carried on running, pulled my car, hit the deck. Again, another challenge of obstacle racing. I think at one point I lost an entire thigh in the mud, and so spent a lot of time then trying to extricate myself from it. And at that point, especially on lap 3, there was no way of passing it at all. You couldn't try and get a drier route round the edge or step in somebody else's footprints. And it sounds daft saying running through mud is an obstacle. It is an obstacle, and I wish there was a bit more training on how not to get stuck and how to run through mud, and I don't know, levitation maybe. But it was great. It was hard, and at that point, people around me who were also doing endurance race were like,
Brilliant, thanks, Ruth. And also just a shout out to Ruth, because she went out, she did the elite race, and then she went out for more laps doing the marathon race. So, kudos to Ruth, because I did the marathon race and I quit after 2 laps. It was too bloody cold.
Yeah, anyone going back out again. I was lucky I wasn't in the water. I was just running around, keeping warm. It was very cold.
Yeah, I honestly, I didn't prep properly. I kind of took it a little bit too easy. But hey, preparing to fail failing to prepare is preparing to fail, right? Right, Chris?
That's right. But you lot should know better anyway. It's an English race. There's loads of water, and everyone still believes that, I'm going to run hard, I'll be warm. But, that amount of water does cool you, especially if you're doing 2 laps, you crazy people.
Yeah.
That's neoprene.
Well, actually, the marathon was 4 laps. So I did wear neoprene as well. I did wear neoprene too, and I was still getting cold. Anyway, James, let's talk about the race. Maybe a bit more about the obstacles. We've talked about the water and the mud. Tell me a little bit more about the female races. You was following those.
Yeah. So as I say, Imi was the front runner pretty much from the beginning. It got a little bit closer towards the middle of the course, but Imi's running was so good throughout. Very, very impressed. She's obviously had a very good winter of training. Towards the middle of the course, Josie pulled it back, and there was probably at some point only an obstacle in it. So it was like 20 seconds, if that, in terms of the distance. Anyone that doesn't know Born Survivor course, it's all pretty straightforward obstacles. But actually, I think it caught a few people off guard just how difficult the terrain was as well. Very muddy, very boggy, up and down. They really took you on a good course. It wasn't like straight trail. There was at points, but it was in and out of the water. A little bit nuts-esque, I would say, without the technical obstacles of nuts. So it really didn't allow you to get a real strong stride, which, to be fair, would have favoured Imi as well as Josie. But I think it stopped Josie kind of catching back up when Imi got out in front. And then Imi, as I say, last half of the race just stretched her lead. I think it was a good couple of minutes by the end. I'm just kind of trying to have a look at the times, but I think it was a couple of minutes lead towards the end that Imi had. And then I went back to kind of see how Josie and Karen were getting on. And when Josie and Imi were close together, Karen was a good minute or so back on Josie. But as we got into the final gauntlet of obstacles, there was a wall and then a balance beam. And at that balance beam, Karen took over Josie. So she caught back up that time, and she just got out in front and kept the lead, which was big for Karen in the series. Getting that second place, that could make a big difference come the end of the year. Then further back in the race, actually the final wall made a difference in some of the later placings, because it wasn't necessarily a straightforward. I think almost everyone got up it. I didn't see actually anyone not get up it in the end, but some people were taking a good 3 or 4 minutes to get up it in the end.
Yeah, a lot of people were using different techniques to get from the videos that I see, using a few different ways to get up. It weren't a straightforward just run up and grab the top.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was any way they could. They were grabbing the matting on the obstacle and really finding their way to get to the top, and because it was mandatory, so they had to do it.
Were they allowed to use the rope? Because I saw rope for the later ways, but I'm assuming not. Because it's strange, isn't it? Because I was fortunate enough that I didn't have to do it every lap. I had to do it right, but my legs were already dying by then. I thought, how the hell am I going to get up there, knowing that I'd have to get up? It's also funny because it's grippier, because you just mentioned there were mats on there, so it kind of was grippier, but it also kind of wasn't. Whether it was steeper than something like Everest or something, I saw loads of people having issues with it, and you kind of think that's a bit of your victory march. Just going back, James, talking about that terrain, because I know you ran a lot of it anyway, but you're right that probably the first 7 or 8K you're running through proper field. We're talking farmers' fields, whether there's the cow pats as there were, but it just churned up, so it did not make for any good running. You always had to watch your step, whether you were going through the bogs or through the woods. And I think there was only one part, and you kind of talked about it towards the end, there may have been a good 800 meters of actual running that people could stretch their legs out, but that was about it. It was technical without it being technical in that, in the sense of what OCR people would think. But because it was so divoted and rutted, you really had to be careful where you were placing your feet. There were several times that I kind of, you kind of go on your ankle, but I caught it. And I must have done that 5 or 6 times through the race. It was really difficult terrain. And as we mentioned, not very hilly, but there were some steep kind of bits. But going in and out of that water, so you're going down into the crevice, into the water, wading through, maybe 10, 20, 30 meters of water, getting out, getting back up the bank. There were parts when I think probably for the first lap wasn't quite so muddy. But again, Ruth mentioned that trying to get through on the 3rd or 4th lap of the mud, you're basically stuck. It got that bad. I think some of the obstacles, going, we mentioned again on the preview race, but there's a lot of going over, going under, so you're constantly moving with your hips and going up and down and up and down. Several people I know were having issues with the power plunge, so basically you're about 9 foot, 10 foot in the air, and then just dropping into the water. People having issues there. And I don't know whether you saw, James, there was a very tall wall towards the end too, and what is it, about 10 foot high or something like that. And actually to grab onto it, the width of that wall was much more than what people would ever expect. So I know people also having issues there trying to get up and out. One, it was very, very tall, much taller than what you'd kind of come to expect from like a Spartan or anything like that. But the width of the wall to put your hands on, that really caught me out the first time as well.
It did actually have an impact on the men's race as well, that big wall at the end. So Finn and Mo were fighting for podium, and
those boys were battling.
Finn didn't quite get it first time. He had to take a second attempt, and Mo got to the top first time. So yeah, it's for a quote unquote non-technical race. Actually, the obstacles in there made a big difference. It was I was really pleased it was in the series, and everyone seemed to really, really enjoy it as well.
Yeah, I'm gutted actually. I missed this. Actually, after watching the videos and seeing Mo's videos come out, the videos that you managed to take, James, and just bits and pieces that I've seen on the internet, it looked like a proper old school race, and the competitive field of it looked like really good. And we haven't seen that many obstacle races like that in this country for a while, where you've got the old school obstacles. People seem to tend to focus on one big thing or a couple of small things. You don't have those old school obstacles that really make a difference on how to battle for a race. It's so good to see.
I think what impressed me was how like, we've come to terms with doing technical events and things, and in the previous show maybe we underestimated a bit, including the terrain, and saying it's flat and fast, but actually you can only run for the last bit by the seams of things, and ankles were really at risk, but maybe we underestimated still, even with 7 years experience or whatever, underestimated the kind of the subtleties of of an obstacle course race like this. You know, the cold, the water is probably the thing that meant that the rack was hard, like the power production in your muscles, rather than, you know, the steepness of whatever. It's just because you were, you know, exhausted from the inside and your whole body. So I think it's impressive that we can still be surprised even now with a classic OCR race. So even the other kind of subtleties that people have been talking about on the feedback, like the music and the obstacle names and things like that.
Yeah, they really did work hard actually in terms of the different obstacles having music and sound. And I was just very impressed. Like my firstborn survivor, even though I didn't run, I was jealous as well, Chris. Not being able to.
I do feel sorry for that that volunteer that Emmy talked about at the Great Escape, because it is that music and it is blasting and it's just on repeat. So he would have been there for, you know, 5-6 hours, and it's just kind of what, a 1 minute snippet of music that's just on repeat. You know, so but I think that we'll talk about the villager and the spectatability in a second. But I think the other thing that for people that have not done Born Survivor and kind of know about the series, I think we talked about it flat and fast. Yes, we did. What makes it different from a Total Warrior, which I'll kind of put it in the same sort of ballpark as Total Warrior, is that Total Warrior has much more manicured running track. So actually it's so much faster because it's a kind of flatter course, you know, in terms of the running. But I would kind of put it more towards Rude Rampage in terms of the terrain. But actually it was so many more obstacles. It's much more obstacle dense than a Rude Rampage. So I would kind of put it in that sort of area. So you're right. I think it did surprise everyone, because you're right. Most people now, let's do rigs, let's do technical. But the pure intensity of, you know, obstacles every few hundred meters really slowed people down. And James, I think hopefully you'll agree that last gauntlet is what they moved obstacles from the last time I did it. So that little bit of an obstacle course from is it the inverse wall onto the balance beam, then you've got this S bend thing on, you know, that is there. Doesn't matter how strong you are at that point, because they're there to slow you down. The balance, you don't care how strong you are. It's you know, how balanced and how coordinated you are. That S bend, honestly, how agile are you? So there was a really good mix of obstacles, and that was a nice bit of gauntlet towards the end. I think that kind of changed it up from other normal obstacle courses.
And the ice dunk before the ramp as well, that probably had an impact on the ramp too.
Definitely.
I think you are right though. I think everyone was expecting more of a Total Warrior-esque race. I was just looking at the times from Total Warrior. It was a 12K race and Dan's time was 48 minutes. And his time at this one was almost 52 minutes for a 10K. So a significant difference. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's all about running this race. The running obviously makes a big difference, but
it's not us that it's also the people who are training, doing not like technical obstacles, but obstacles over and over again in a short space of time. It's not every day you get people training obstacles. And then if you're training at a lot of places, you might be doing like a 1K run going into an obstacle, the 2K run, or even a mile or something. But it's one after the other. And that makes a total difference to how it's going to be. And that shows in the results. It shows who's getting on obstacles a lot. And it doesn't mean it's the technical ones. It's the ones who are getting through obstacles, and they know how to like create that change in their body to go over them functionally. And, you know, and what's the word like I'm looking for? Like efficiently. Thank you very much, Becky, you doctor.
Thanks. Yeah, that maybe is what happened with the, you know, we're just saying that the women's race kind of got bunched up, or they were closer, then they further apart, and maybe it's down to those efficiency bits rather than just who was tired at the end. I know Imi said that she had a tactic to push a bit harder towards the end and was saving herself, and also hasn't done many long races, whereas like maybe they had different tactics, but perhaps it is just that efficiency on certain obstacles. So maybe that actually shows the racers themselves which bits they need to work on or don't need to work on. Where, you know, because you can tell, can't you, how close you are to somebody else, and see when someone does it more efficiently than you. It's really obvious. So it's probably useful experience.
Cool. Let's go talk about the male race in a bit more detail. And Chris, again, I think you managed to get us a few more voice notes from some of the competitors.
I did somehow. I've got some voice notes over from Russell Walsh. Let's hear from Russell.
Hello, who's hot team? How's it going? Yeah, my Bone Survivor run. Yeah, wasn't looking forward to it. Not really interested in the traditional military mud run, but actually, I really enjoyed it. Don't know if it was just, yeah, it was a bit more of a runner's course. Didn't really have to think about anything. It was just run, and jump through bogs, and yeah, pick good lines. So concentration was you had to think about your good lines and get through it. So no, it was a good race. Just kind of tagged on the back of Dan. Me and Dan kind of got away with a little bit. Had a wee bit of a gap against Mo and Ricky, and Finley, but they finished not far behind me and Dan. So no, it was a good race, tough race, but definitely a runner's course. So it suited me and Dan quite well. Cheers.
I also got a voice note from some guy I know who does some podcast with some other cool dudes. One of them's really handsome. The other one's just had a hair transplant. Let's hear from him.
Okay, hello, Becky, Will, and the other guy, and Who's Hot listeners. So, Born Survivor, I'll keep it nice and quick. I think it hit every aspect that it was supposed to. It's supposed to be a military course, and it was exactly that. Military style, tough running, wet, horrible, muddy obstacles, and obstacles that challenge you mentally. Obviously, selfishly, I would have liked a few more rigs, but I understand that is not the purpose of this race. This race is just get your head down, work hard through obstacles that you can move through. The race was fast, it was stacked, and you couldn't ever switch off. I had a great battle with Finley in the last kind of 300 metres to get my third place. It was a well fought race and I managed to just get it at the end. But all in all, great race, and I'm glad to get some points for Rumble and help me in the series. Also, joking, I love you, Shipley.
And I also got a message from the winner of the race and a new Team Wild Forest member, Dan. Let's hear from Dan.
Hi mate, so really the race kind of went pretty good. So it was a case of just cruising through the first sort of couple of Ks. I knew the sort of switchbacks heading round to the first set of obstacles. I knew that if you'd stay in the front pack, then you've got a good chance later on in the race. As I was doing a quick recce going around and having a look at some of the obstacles, and it seemed like quite narrow lanes, so it was a matter of trying to get to the front to escape the crowd. Once we started getting going, it was just a case of getting through the water, getting through the mud, the basic obstacles, and crossing the boggy ground. A lot of the training in that respect sort of comes from my sort of background in trail running, getting used to getting cold, getting wet, and just like trying to run and sort of shift yourself as quickly as you can over that kind of terrain. So the later stages of the race, as it started getting really cold, was causing me to slow down, and there was quite a strong wind coming over one of the backfields in the last couple of miles, which really started to get to me a little bit. But it was a case of just having to grizz it down and just get my head down into the game, and just really through pure aggression, just get through the last few obstacles towards the finish. That's kind of where I made sort of some of the ground, and I was quite fortunate that Russell made a small mistake on a cargo net getting caught, which just gave me that little bit of sort of the comfort zone heading into the last mile, which sometimes in racing, it's when you come to sort of that level of where you're literally swapping places through the race, it can come down to the last couple of obstacles, and even such a tiny mistake can give your opponent the edge. In terms of Wild Forest, it's only been a week, so the official announcement was put out after the race. I've trained with the team going down to Wild Forest, obviously on training days. To me, it was sort of an open opportunity to join, looking for the 2024 season. The team ethics itself are what fit me as a racer, i.e. it's a fun, community-based team that also do compete. And like I said, having the access to the training facilities there and being so close to home is a massive benefit, and it's one of the reasons why I did join the team. So that's kind of everything I have for your Who's Hot podcast for my review of the event. Cheers.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. That's amazing. James, you were following a bit of the men's race. Tell us all.
Yeah, I'll do as good as I can. As I say, I wasn't following all of it. However, very fast and furious at the beginning. So it went, excuse me, it went out into a running switchback at the start, up and down.
Five switchbacks.
Yes, I think it was. It was significant and a decent hill as part of it, and then finished going up and then over hay bales. And it was chopping and changing at that point. I saw Mo out in front, Liam. I saw
Finley was in the battle as well. I've seen that one that you posted. Yeah, it was looking good. Ricky was in there.
Dan, Russ. There was probably 5 or 6.
Jason.
Yeah. Oh yeah, forgot Jason. Yeah, because he dropped back a bit towards the end. So yeah, feisty, pushy start, and everyone probably killed themselves on that switchback. I would say then Dan Titcombe kind of started to get out in front with Russell following. I do know that Liam was up there though. I know Liam cut his hand on barbed wire and had to withdraw. When I ran past, there was blood pouring down his arm. I think he was trying to get back in the race, but I think the medic did.
I saw a post that he put up. Fair play to him. I think he's got quite a bit of grit towards him, and I don't think he actually really wanted to quit. So fair play to him. I think we've all been in that situation, and you don't want to pull out even with a bit of blood.
Yeah. So yeah, Liam
you ain't got time to bleed.
And then, as I say, the mid of the race, I wasn't as up to speed with. But I don't know if anyone else kind of has any detail. But I know towards the end of the race, Dan got a sizable lead. Russell couldn't keep up with him essentially in terms of towards the end. Although it's only about 15-20 seconds by the end of it, but enough that Russell couldn't catch up. But it was Mo and Finn that were catching on Russell towards the end because they were battling, obviously, so they were pushing and closing the gap on Russell. As I mentioned earlier, it was probably that one mistake on the wall from Finn's perspective that meant Mo was able to get from 4th to 3rd and claim the final podium spot. I do know also that Mo made a mistake earlier in the race and got slightly lost, which probably cost him a few seconds. I think he went and got back to about 6th position.
Yeah, so he told me he was trying to cheat. He said he was trying to find a shortcut.
He was jumping on the 6K course. And yeah. So no, again, great to see the race. We've got a bit of footage from the men's race that we're going to recap with the women's race as well into some content that Fede's kindly going to put together, and we'll put that out in the next week or so. But again, really happy to see such a competitive field. Mostly travelling up to Manchester from either down south or from up north, and from Scotland, basically, wasn't it? Everyone was converging kind of into Manchester.
I think the signage was like pretty good, but obviously, like if you're getting cold, it must be really hard to keep your brain going. Were the men getting cold? Because I mean, I heard from Das, it was very, very, very cold, and I think Jason was pretty cold as well. But what was that like a general feeling from the men's field?
I think everyone was cold. By the end, everyone wasn't hanging around at the finish line. They were off getting changed. I think that ice dip right at the end as well. But I know Daz, bless him, was impacted more earlier in the race, and he lost some positions because he that thing that we've all faced at a certain point in obstacle racing, where the fingers just turn to
claw
ice. That weird feeling, isn't it? It's like, what's going on with my fingers? They don't work.
You go to grip something and then it just doesn't have the same grasp as you used to have. Yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah, so I know Daz lost a few places because he couldn't get over any obstacles with any great speed because he had no use of hands, which is probably a good job it wasn't such a technical race, because otherwise you'd be out for the count.
Well, I had my Blake mitts and I took them for the second lap. I was like, oh my God, this is so cold. But it wasn't like the coldest day. I think that because it's natural water, cold, and the water was sprinkled through the whole race. It wasn't just at one point, here's all the water and off you go. You was wet pretty much the whole time just because it was so spread out. And I think there was a bit of a wind chill factor as well. So
that makes a big difference. Honestly,
great running day, just not a great OCR running day for weather.
The neoprene isn't so useful when you have to go in and out. You can't warm up the water so well. But maybe a good practice for something like a UKOCR race series in October.
Very good practice.
Well, we don't know how warm it's going to be in a few weeks either.
Yeah, last year. We'll talk about that in the next episode.
Hold on, James. Hold your horses.
The great British weather, eh?
One thing I did, I don't know whether you guys have seen this, but how cool is this? Can of water, but it's a Born Survivor limited edition. I got it from Ben, who is he's actually a Legionnaire. He started doing lots of OCR. He was there. Also got his feedback.
Hi Will, just some post Born Survivor feedback. I thought it was a great course layout, even with the hills at the start. They did really split the pack up, so there was no waiting at obstacles or bottlenecks that you do find at some other races. I did really enjoy the mixture of obstacles and the order that they came in throughout the course. I've personally done this race a few times now, and I'll definitely be attending it again. I was also lucky enough to be one of the sponsors of the event with my business Water, providing all the finisher drinks and hydration on the course. So shout out to Rob and all of his team who put an incredible shift in to deliver us all a safe and enjoyable course.
Awesome, thanks Ben. So any more thoughts about the race, James, before we start to see if we can start to work out a few points and who's towards the top of the leaderboard?
Not specifically to Born Survivor, more of a general point from Born Survivor being in the series. I kind of mentioned it earlier, but I think we don't want the UKOCR series to be just one thing. We want it to be a technical race. We want it to be a mud classic OCR race. We want it to be a shorter race, a longer race. That diversity of classic courses, I think that's what makes obstacle racing so great. And it was excellent to have Born Survivor in the series. I know it was in the series a few years ago, the first season, but probably not as well attended as it was this time. This was over 60 racers, which was fantastic to see. So yeah, just hope to continue it with seeing this diversity of races in the series in the future.
Yeah, and it's a nice way to like kind of unite some of the newer racers who have been used to, you know, the kind of some of the things we've been doing more recently, but also some racers that have been doing it for a really long time. Like Heather Radcliffe was there in
Yes.
the top 10. Great to see her back as well. Like she's been doing classic OCR for a long time. John Merriweather turned up for this one as well. So like it kind of brings the whole community together by it being in this series. And it's quite an accessible race, I suppose. So definitely.
Yeah, it's almost got that entry level sort of esque to it, hasn't it? Because it doesn't seem like a technical race, and it seems like that old school classic mud run. It has that sort of, oh, let's do that one instead of one of these technical races to see where I fare against these other athletes.
And I think what you know, just taking on that point, that it is accessible, and there was what, James, about 2,000, I think 3,000 races, runners, spectators there. Very quickly, talk about the village, because I thought it was huge, and there was a massive atmosphere. You know, there's music going on. James, what was your thought? Because you was obviously running across the village from both points. But
no,
what did you think?
Excellent. Yeah, no, it had some good set up with the bike riding. We could flip onto an airbag. That was super cool. There was things to go climbing. Yeah, no, good music, live band. Excellent.
Sounds like a proper family day out. Did you have to walk back?
I didn't, unfortunately. But that was the one thing I think they'd be great for them to introduce a bit of a kids race in there, because I think you could then really make it a family day. So that's kind of maybe an improvement for them in the future.
And there were prizes and podiums as well. Got the whole range.
Yeah, and again, having a podium, excellent. I think we want to see that in the competitive races. The one thing that they didn't do so well, I actually missed the podium because they didn't announce it fully. Yeah. No, it's like the podium is happening in 5 minutes. All come. They didn't. It just kind of happened. And but no, Rob, the RD, put on a fantastic day. So kudos to the team there.
Yeah, it was a fantastic, huge village bar. As you say, there was live music in the stage, which was fantastic. 4 or 5 different food vendors as well. Loads of toilets, which is always a good thing. Parking,
talking point.
Parking was really well organized. But yeah, I thought the village actually was for me on par with a Tough Mudder-esque village. It was that big and had that much stuff going on. So, you know, they'd really thought about that well. So yeah, I thought village and spectatability, James, especially along that last bit of the gauntlet, really good, right?
Yeah, and I think it shows by the feedback from the races where everyone seemed to have a really good race. Probably the only thing that the theme in terms of improvements was more the results and how they could get those clearer and out quicker. That was really the only thing. Obviously, if you're competitive, you want to know where you placed, and it's taken a bit of a while to get the information. They've only done a few of these competitive races previously, so I'm sure that will improve in the future. That's kind of the only real improvement point, really, that kind of come through in the feedback.
Lovely.
And it's also nice that there was prize money or prize vouchers on board as well. I think, was it 150 for first, second, third for both male and female, which I think was sports shoes vouchers, and we can all use more sports shoes or more clothing or something. So, you know, it's brilliant.
That would explain why Mo has bought some new shoes. He sent me a picture of the other day, so that would explain it. Can't wait to see what the other guys and girls have got.
Brilliant. Do we have scores on the doors? Do we believe at least top 3 of who's leading the series so far?
We do. So the full, and there will be, when they publish, they'll be published probably by the time this is out into the wild. They will be provisional just while we wait for a few updates to the results. But we know that in the women's, Karen is definitely in first, with a first and a second. We have Josie in third with a second and a third. And then Shyla, who she came, hang on a second, I want to see this. She came
sixth place, Shyla.
1, 2, 3, 4. She came 6th at Tartamore and 5th, at Born Survivor. So she's in third. And in the men's, Russell Walsh, first and second. I think it's going to be another interesting battle with him and Dan this year. Second, we have Mo with a second and a third. And then it was very tight for third, but Ricky is just pipping Finn for third. So, yeah, 2 races in, starting to get interesting already.
That's right. And that is just so early on in the season. How many races we got left?
We've got 6 more.
6 more races. Could you pick who do you reckon is going to be on top? Because I can't.
No, I mean, we couldn't even predict the top 3 in this race or the top 10.
No, I think you was closer than me as well, Becky.
Well, we know that's the case.
I think you were hiding something from me. You must have like secret start lists and you just weren't getting them out.
I did forget to check the poll, guys. Yes, I did.
I think the hardest one to pick, and we've got 2 team members on here from winning the last 2, is the team race.
Yeah,
Wow.
The team race is hotting up big time, and it's so close. And like we said before on the previous episode or the podcast, whichever one it was, that just turning up for races, not necessarily battling for a podium spot, really makes a big difference. So it's going to be a battle.
Definitely all about the depth.
Just as we're talking about teams. So the British champs will have, similar to the series, will have a team element to the senior competition. So there'll be a race within the senior comp as well. So just similar to cross country, you're going to have 5 team members counting towards your team score in the senior race.
You're always just trying to make me spend money, aren't you, James?
Well, I don't work in marketing for nothing.
Sounds like an exclusive to me.
That's a fantastic exclusive. Are you coming across for the British Champs, Chris?
I was planning on taking a rest week.
It's the biggest race in the UK.
Yes, but I like to rest.
Rabbit.
Well, someone's just throwing a hook and a little fish on the end, or a little maggot on the end.
Represent your club.
Yeah. As you say, it's not just about you claiming points; it's pushing other people down as well. So there's tactics, isn't there?
I know what you lot are doing as well, and it's not going to work.
I'm not going to give you any more excuses on British champs, but there's more to come as well.
And the new emoji that's on the iPhone. It's a phoenix.
What's an emoji?
Phoenix. Wow.
Just saying.
Chris, I think maybe you should come up and rabbit. I'll probably come and rabbit.
I might do
need more
actually.
rabbits.
Yeah, I was thinking of that.
Find you up, Will.
I don't know if I could keep up with the men or the women. Not when it's just running.
I felt so unfit trying to keep up with him. Oh my! I need to get more running in.
Definitely. I might get one of them. What are those Segway things? I might get one of them. That'd be quite cool. You could follow people on that.
Is
it a Segway?
Segway, isn't it? It is a Segway.
It is a Segway, and it's a Segway into the next
Whoa.
thing.
Nice. So, guys, thank you very much for talk about Born Survivor up in Catesthorne Hall. If you are interested, the next one is on the 14th of September, further north. I think it's Ribble Valley in Lancashire. That's got that awesome torpedo slide, they call it. So that's worth having a look at if you're up north and want to take on Born Survivor in a different way. Hopefully, we will see them back again next year. My thanks this time to James Burton. Thank you from British Obstacle Sports. You can follow British Obstacle Sports on Instagram at British Obstacle Sports. My thanks, as always, to my two OCR elite races. We've got Chris Shipley. You can follow him at Obstacle Race Dude, and Becky Neal at The Runner Bean UK. If you don't already, why are you not following UKOCR? You can follow them on all the different media channels at UKOCR. This has been the Born Survivor recap. Thank you very much for listening, and we will speak to you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
Later.
Ain't no glory for the faint of heart. We all stars, win or lose, we don't play the part. And when the going getting tough, I get to going hard. You bring your best and you know I'ma tear them apart. We been in survival, rival, I ain't got no time for anyone who ain't put in the work that I do. You ain't heard about us, think I'm gonna remind you. I've been out here doing what I say is what defines you. This is our time, hands to the sky. You already know, I ain't gotta tell them why. Hands to the sky, this is our time. You already know, I ain't gotta tell them why. This is our